All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl from Cleveland. This is episode 122. Sorry, I took last week off for the bye week, so it's been 2 weeks since we've gotten to chat again, but it was good for me to be able to take a little week here and there. Football season gets crazy, man. It's an ongoing grind, so back and energized and ready to talk about the Browns' extremely exciting win against what some might have said going into this game, the best team in the NFL this year. They were undefeated going into this game, pretty much firing on all cylinders on both sides of the ball. And the Browns came into that game and, it wasn't pretty, but they fought hard and came out with the win. And regardless of what anyone says about the Browns' performance in this game or the injuries that the 49ers took throughout the game, the Browns earned this game. They deserved this game. They fought extremely hard, and the fans should be excited about it. Like, the Browns never won games like this in the history of this team since they returned to Cleveland in 1999. This is not a game that this team historically has won. So do not let anyone dim your happiness or excitement about getting this win, because it doesn't come along often. And we know this team struggles to get it done in those moments, especially when you're down by, at one point, double digits. So enjoy the moment, be happy about it. I know I am. It was extremely exciting to watch. And we're going to get into all of my thoughts of it. Don't have much to say about Ohio State after another pretty significant win, but this upcoming weekend I think is going to be probably their second massive test of the season, other than playing Notre Dame earlier this year. They play Penn State, another very highly ranked team. Always a battle. I remember during my years going to Ohio State, I think one year we rushed the field after a win against Penn State. It was at least single overtime. It might have been double overtime. Just a hard-fought game, and every single year it was a battle. That was really right up there most years with playing that team up north. You just knew it was going to be competitive, so should be a big test. What I find very strange, though, is that they put that game at noon. I feel like that should 100% be a night game. There's always like a great theme for it. It's either like whiteout if it's at Penn State, blackout if it's at Ohio State. Always a good time, so I am shocked they put it at noon. I feel like that's kind of disrespectful to how important that game has been. I also just thought of this about Penn State. I was looking at the upcoming schedule for the next couple of years for the Big Ten, with all of the changes that are being made to the Big Ten with the new teams coming in, and it's kind of crazy now. We do not play Penn State every single year, and that's the one thing I think I'm bummed about. It's become somewhat of a mini rivalry. And it's unfortunate that that is not going to be a regular thing anymore. It was still in most years from what I remember looking at that schedule, but still pretty shocking that it's just some of that tradition is going to be gone in the Big Ten, which is a little bit unfortunate. Okay, so yeah, there will be plenty, I'm sure, to talk about that game. I'm hoping to be able to watch it while I will be driving on Saturday to Indianapolis to watch our Cleveland Browns play on Sunday. So should be very exciting. I feel like there's going to be a ton of Browns fans there. Cleveland and Indianapolis are only about 4 hours apart. So I think this is going to be a big travel game for a lot of fans who want to drive to a game. The Browns should win that game, given that Anthony Richardson, their starting quarterback, is out potentially for the entire season. The most recent reports have been saying that. So this definitely should be a game that the Browns win. But, we win games apparently that we're supposed to lose, and we've lost some games, i.e. Steelers game, that we should win. So you can't count on anything. I was tweeting something out earlier today about the schedule for the rest of the season, just asking people's thoughts on what our record could be for the remaining games, because there are a lot of winnable games on this schedule. If you take a look at who the Browns play the rest of this season, a lot of teams that are at the bottom of the league. So winnable games, but you can never be too confident that those are secure wins. That team could come out strong that week. You might get an injury that derails you, or just not come out, with your best performance, and one bad interception or one turnover, and just things can change. So Don't want to be too confident, but the schedule looks pretty nice for the Browns, I would say, in general, just in terms of numbers on what you feel like is going to happen. Okay, so I guess we can get into the game now. 19-17 was the final score, pretty low scoring game. I think the spread on the sports books was in the 30s. I want to say it was like 38 or something. So came in pretty close around there. Very gross kind of day in Cleveland. It was raining at least for most of the first half, I believe. I'm not sure when it actually stopped, but it was cold, windy, rainy, just not a great day. We really haven't had nice games here for the most part, which is unfortunate. We usually get at least a couple. And even when it gets colder, as long as you can avoid the rain, it's not so bad. But when you get the rain going, it really changes the way these guys can play. And it obviously changes the kicking game as well, which we saw in this game. The Browns missing one kick and the 49ers missing two, one of them being the game winner, the 41-yard field goal that they had a chance to make at the end and didn't make it. I felt like it was doubly nice because it was a kicker from that team up north and felt good, just a little nice Ohio State karma for me right there. But in general, it was crazy to see him miss it because you just felt like at the end there, this is a typical Browns loss. The kicker's going to make it. They're going to walk off with the win. This is how it goes in the city of Cleveland, Ohio. And it didn't go that way, which is really exciting because genuinely watching that game, it felt like the Browns were the better team on that field. I'm not saying throughout the course of the season, but on that field during this day, the Browns played a better game, in my opinion, and so much of that had to do with what the defense did. Obviously, offensively, it was going to be tricky because we had PJ Walker out there, which, look, he made some dumb mistakes, which I will talk about some. But overall, he just kind of did what he needed to do. I think it was extremely smart to have him play instead of DTR. Clearly, just having experience in this league matters a lot, and DTR wasn't ready. So I think it was obviously the right move at the end of the day to bring PJ Walker up to the active roster and have him play in this game. And he did a fine job. There were clear reasons on why he is not a starter in this league, and that is okay. But he did enough to get it done, and I am very appreciative of his performance for that. Amari Cooper had a decent game for the amount of receptions that he got. He only had 4 receptions, but it was for a total of 108 yards. That guy is just so special. He had one really awesome 58-yard catch that was down the sideline that very few guys in this league could catch, and he made it happen. And every time he has one of those moments, I just sit there and shake my head laughing at the fact that Andrew Berry got that man for a 5th-round pick last year, and he has been incredible for this team. Like, the value of that trade in that moment and just the thought to do that because you knew the Cowboys were going to release him, and it's like, hey, let's just trade him for a 5th-round pick and make sure we can secure, you know, a talented receiver on this roster, and he has been incredible ever since then. So really exciting to see him have some of those bright moments, even if he's not getting the level of production, maybe the number of targets that he would like or is expecting. Obviously, it's PJ Walker. It's a rainy day. You're probably not going to be getting a ton of targets anyways, but it was good to see that he made the most of those moments and had some really nice plays. I think the biggest thing with offense continues to be, regardless of who is out there at quarterback, Deshaun, DTR, PJ Walker, turnovers. Turnovers have been the biggest struggle for this team. They lead the league in turnovers, and they've already had their bye week. So there's teams that have played a lot of teams that have played one more game than the Cleveland Browns, and they have less turnovers than this team. So I think, you know, if they can really work on cleaning that up, that's going to be the difference in some of these close games as the season goes on, and is going to be really important for them. So that obviously continues to be an issue. I think the thing that's most exciting is the Browns have not come back from a double-digit deficit since 2018. The Browns were down 10-0 at one point and were able to come back and win. 2018, 5 years ago. That's a long time now to not come back from a double-digit win. So just really huge momentum shift, and I think it meant a lot to those players. You saw Stefanski post-game, the players post-game. They were so pumped up. Stefanski was more elated than I have seen him in a long time. I think he just really felt like he needed to get this one, and that it was going to be really important, especially going 2-3 is just so much worse than going 3-2. It makes such a difference to have that extra win in there, especially you're at home. And it seems like they really wanted it. So I was so happy for all of them. Mentioning Stefanski, though, we got to talk about the continued conversations about coaching and this team, which is just never going to end. And I know it's never going to end for any team because we are not the only fan base that does this. Every single fan base is doing this about their coach. Even 49ers fans after this week are very upset with Kyle Shanahan and his play calling during this game. And Kyle Shanahan, I would say, is considered to be maybe the best play caller in this league, or at least best run offense in this league. I think people forget maybe about some of his end game play calling, situational play calling that he's had in his history as a coach, because the 49ers have been so good and have been so dominant. He hasn't had to be in as many of those moments. So I think people do forget about that. But in general, considered to be one of the best offensive minds that this league has, and their fan base is extremely upset with him right now. Most fan bases are. So I know this isn't just a Cleveland Browns problem, but I just find it so frustrating that the Browns at home beat, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, maybe considered to be the best team in the league right now, and people still want to fire the head coach, and that's their main takeaway from watching this game. That just blows my mind that is what your thought process is coming out of this. If you truly just want to be negative or get your take or your opinion to be right on things more than you want the Cleveland Browns to win, it is so strange to me. 92.3 had a segment this morning, and I saw the clip of it actually on Twitter, kind of talking about this phenomenon of fans just being ridiculously upset with Kevin and not being able to enjoy these moments, and that all of the callers that they're getting in there are just yelling about Kevin's play calling on this play or that play, and just sometimes just not having an understanding of the game entirely. I think the one play that a lot of people kept coming back to was down the stretch when they're at about, I want to say, the 10 or 15 yard line, somewhere in there, and PJ Walker makes a throw that was nearly intercepted. And the Browns obviously were trying to score a touchdown at this point. We're going to settle for a field goal if they weren't able to get the touchdown. But you definitely, I think this is the argument that people are missing. You definitely wanted a touchdown in that moment, because if you kick the field goal like we did, we go up by 2, and you give Brock Purdy and the 49ers, one of the best offenses in the league, the opportunity to go down the field and score, and you do not have time to respond to that. So you definitely want to score the touchdown to go up by more than 3 points so that they are forced to score a touchdown rather than kick a field goal. It was not some given that we were going to be in this position to stop them at that point when, it was very clear that they had the capability of going down the field, and that's what they did. They went down and kicked it, and if they made that, the Browns were going to lose the game. I think that needs to be pretty clear that play, the goal of that drive was to score a touchdown. Now for the play specifically, Kevin mentioned this after the game. I don't know if PJ Walker also did, but I am sure he would admit this as well, that he was not supposed to throw the ball on that play into 3 49ers defenders like he did. Kevin made it very clear that if what he was looking for wasn't there, that he should slide, I don't know, maybe throw the ball away, but definitely probably slide and stay in bounds, so that, that the clock would be running and that they would still, not make any boneheaded plays, do anything stupid. He did not tell PJ Walker to go ahead and throw the ball into like triple coverage in that moment. That's almost disrespectful to Kevin to think that that's what his plan was on that specific play. He told him to do that. He made it clear after the game that's what he told him to do. And we can't treat backup quarterbacks or third string quarterbacks like they are middle schoolers. These are professional quarterbacks who can hear something from a coach and make a decision based on that. Like, we cannot hold their hands. That is a very simple thing, is saying, hey, if it's not there, slide. I'm not sure how much more clear it could be, and that is definitely on PJ to be able to figure that out. We don't have to hold their hands and baby them as a backup quarterback. Of course, as an offense, you are simplifying things. You want to do things differently than you would with Deshaun Watson. Absolutely, that makes sense. But in terms of literally just saying, hey, if the play's not there, go down, you got to trust your NFL level quarterback to be able to do that. And blaming Kevin on it, I think, is irresponsible. And it just is something that people are doing to try to fit the narrative that they have already made up in their minds about Kevin Stefanski and about who he is as an offensive play caller, that they just want to get mad about it. And it's just, it doesn't make any sense because that specifically was not his fault. The Browns really should have scored a touchdown there. That was the definite goal of that drive because we were about to lose that game. We almost did by just the slightest margin, about a foot of that football going a little bit right of the goalposts, and it would have been a totally different story. So I think it's important to remember that. I, for one, am not going to complain about coaching after a win like that. Of course, just like everyone else, there are plays that I would have done differently, that a lot of people would have done differently. And I think it's important to remember that every coach walks away from a game like that. Every fan base walks away from a game like that. This is not just a Browns experience, that other teams somehow have these perfect coaches that are calling the game exactly correctly in every single moment. It really doesn't exist. So overall, the fact that you're able to come out of this game beating one of the best teams in the league should be enough for people to just calm down for one moment about Kevin Stefanski and their feelings about him as a play caller, because he did some really nice things in this game, got creative. I think for some reason, Kevin is better with backups in a way. Like he can be his more creative self, I think, and maybe feels more comfortable to do that because he's just like, all right, we'll just throw him out there and see what happens and do some interesting things. They had a lot of pre-snap movement stuff happening. It was interesting. I liked it. But overall, I just would like people to calm down about him. Okay. So let's get into the defense, which is really the biggest part of the reason that the Cleveland Browns were able to win this game. Some of the statistics that I will share throughout this discussion here about this defense are some of the most insane statistics that you could hear about a defense. And it's crazy that in a year's time, we've come so far. And obviously last week, there were a little bit of questions starting to come up about the defense and some holes that might have been exposed. And there were a variety of different reasons for that, one being what we talked about last week and on how the offense was just 3 and out, and the defense seemed pretty gassed and seemed pretty tired. That was not the case this week. The Browns allowed San Francisco 215 yards of total offense, which is the fewest yards of total offense under Kyle Shanahan as the coach of the 49ers, which is a crazy, crazy thing that they were able to do that. Overall, in these first 5 weeks, they've allowed 1,002 total yards through these 5 games. That's the fewest of any team since 1972. That is a long time, guys. Like, I read these and I'm like, oh, really cool stat. But when you really think about how many teams, how many defenses have played over the course of those years, and this is the most dominant in so many different categories, it's really, really impressive. And I don't think Jim Schwartz is even doing anything so revolutionary here or some crazy new concept. Like, it's a lot of the same of what a Jim Schwartz defense has historically looked like. I think a lot of the players have talked about this. A huge part of their success is that he is giving the players so much freedom to go out there and just play. They don't have to think as much. You know, I've talked about this on here already, that this was a problem with the Joe Woods defense of the past couple of years, that they had to think through things too much and they weren't just playing freely. And that's how a lot of miscommunications happened. Now they're just so free to go out there and fly around on the field and make plays. And I think the biggest part of it is that they just have the talent in order to play like that. Not every team could play in a Jim Schwartz defense with, you know, the level of talent that they have either on the defensive line or in the secondary. For example, in the secondary in this game, they played an insane amount of man coverage, which not everyone can do against the 49ers because of the matchups. The 49ers have a ton of offensive weapons. But the Browns have a lot of really solid corners. You have Denzel Ward, you have Martin Emerson, you have Greg Newsome, other guys in the secondary, Delpit, Juan Thornhill are, really key players in all of this as well. But those guys are able to play man on some of their top guys, the Debos of the team, the George Kittles, and really shut those guys down, which is so exciting to watch because it's really one of the only defenses in the league that even has an option to do that. And they did just that. They were incredibly dominant. Martin Emerson had his first interception, which was so exciting for him. You always hope for guys to get that moment, and I'm sure he was just over the moon to experience that. Was super happy for him overall. And then on the defensive line, you obviously have Miles completely dominating Trent Williams. And, Trent Williams gave him all the respect after the game, saying, I don't know if it was today or sometime during this week, that he is a Hall of Famer, like referring to Miles as, just one of the best to do it. And he had Trent Williams have his lowest graded game, according to PFF, since week 17 of 2018. So his lowest graded game. Miles shoved him a few times and made him look like a small man who had no control. And that's one of the most dominant players at his position in the league. And Miles made him look kind of dumb in some moments, which was pretty crazy. Miles has the ability to do that in general. Some other crazy defensive stats. The defense allowed 51 first downs this season, which is first in the NFL. The league average is 110.38, so about half the number of first downs allowed. They're just shutting teams down. 3-and-outs constantly across the board are happening. They're just not letting teams move the ball. They're swarming early, getting them behind the sticks on, the first play of their drive and putting them in a really tough position. It's so cool, so exciting to watch. The Browns defense held the 49ers to 108 rushing yards, which was their lowest of the season, 125 passing yards, which also was their lowest of the season. Brock Purdy, who has been honestly starting to go into the conversation for MVP for a lot of people, honestly, which I wasn't quite there yet. That was a little bit crazy to me. But he ended this game with a 55.3 passer rating, which was his lowest of the season. And coming into the game, he had the best passer rating of all quarterbacks. So completely shut him down and made him look a little silly. Another guy who had a great game was JOK. He had 3 tackles for loss, was really flying all over the field. For some reason, when I'm watching him, I feel like he looks so much bigger than last year. I don't know if I can back that up with any actual numbers on if he's actually gained weight or muscle or what, but he just seems bigger. And maybe it's just with the way he's playing, he looks a lot bigger out there. It was such a dominant performance across the board that I feel like people couldn't even understand how good it was, that they wanted to excuse the 49ers by saying it was their injuries. If they didn't have all the injuries throughout the game, because obviously CMC was hurt, Debo was hurt, they had guys kind of coming in and out throughout the game, that the 49ers would have won that game. And I think that is ridiculously unfair to say to the Browns, because their starting quarterback was out, Deshaun Watson. I think automatically right there, when you don't have your starting quarterback, that's ridiculous to say that the other team struggled with injuries more. Like, you didn't have your starting quarterback. PJ Walker joined the active roster like 2 days before the game. So I think that's a little bit crazy to say. Also, their star running back and Nick Chubb, who they lost for the entire season, and their Pro Bowl, potentially Hall of Fame guard, Joel Bitonio, who hasn't missed a game other than the playoff game when he had to sit out because of COVID in like 7 years or something insane like that, had to miss the game for an injury. So we had injuries too. And I think it's a little bit unfair to just put that on the 49ers side and say, oh, yeah, that's why the Browns won. It's not because of their dominant performance on defense and, the offense being able to put it together and make it happen. Can't be that. So I feel like that needs to be said as well, that the Browns also dealt with plenty of injuries that affected what they were going to be able to do, and they still managed to make it work. And, even with the 49ers injuries, they did have some of those guys for a good portion of the game. So they were still out there. We didn't have our starting quarterback and our star running back at all. So a little bit of a difference. On the Browns offense, I thought the one other call out I wanted to make was about the running game. It was the first time since Nick Chubb going out that I felt like there was some real momentum there. The Browns had 160 yards of total rushing, and Jerome Ford led the Browns with 84 rushing yards. So felt like he looked a little bit better. Look, it's going to take time, and he's just never going to be Nick Chubb. None of them are ever going to be Nick Chubb. I thought Kareem had a couple good moments. He had his touchdown, which was really exciting for him. But he had some nice runs as well. And you just hope that the combination of all these guys put them together, that, you know, they're able to have games like that, 160 yards rushing, pretty decent. So I feel good about seeing that against the 49ers, who have, you know, a nice defense. So very positive. I feel like that's everything about the game. There was just so much there that was so exciting and so fun to watch. Going into Indianapolis now, very winnable game. You have the Seahawks after that, who are a good team, and that's a tough environment to play in. So I think that's going to be a really big test for them. And then you are playing the Cardinals, I believe, after that. So another very winnable game. So we're going into an interesting stretch here. After those three, I think it's Steelers and Ravens. So you've got the division right back in there, and you're hoping that your Steelers at home and Ravens on the road, that you're able to at least get one of those, get a division win, hopefully both, because we haven't, you know, we're 1-2 in the division so far. You want to start racking up some more of those division wins, but feeling pretty good at 3-2 right now. It's a nice place to be after the stretch of games that we had to start the season. All things considered, with the quarterback situation, with the Nick Chubb situation, you got to look at that and say 3-2 is not a bad place to be at all. So on to the next week. The football season is flying. I was just saying this yesterday. I feel like it just started and it's already going so fast, and we're going into week 7. It's going too fast, and it freaks me out because I love football and it's the best time of year. Yeah, so that is all I have. Oh, the one other thought that I didn't bring up, I went to the Cavs preseason game on, it was yesterday actually. They played the Israeli basketball team. I don't know how to pronounce the name, but obviously not a ton of takeaways because it's a preseason game. But I thought overall it was nice to see the depth on this team that I feel like has been missing, especially when it comes to shooting. Like, I feel like there's some fun players. Bates is going to be really fun. Just some of the young guys and some of the new guys. We've got, you know, Strus didn't play in this game, but Niang was out there. You've got Ty Jerome. Like, there's some fun players that I'm really looking forward to seeing even get just like sprinkles of minutes here and there, like a Ty Jerome. I'm not sure, you know, how much he's going to play, but Dean Wade looked a little bit better. Hopefully he can stay healthy, fingers crossed. But I'm really excited about the Cavs. I think there's the potential for them to really have a nice season, especially regular season. I think they have the potential to be a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. You just hope that ends up factoring into the playoffs and they can actually win a series this year, because we cannot do that again. That is not going to be good if we do what we did last year. So just wanted to throw that in as well. I liked the depth that I got to watch in that game. And the regular season will be starting soon for them. So very exciting. That is all I have for you guys, though. Thank you so much for listening. Very much appreciate it. If you could leave a review or rating on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. Subscribe on YouTube. Please do that. Leave a comment there. Tell me what you think, or any thoughts you have about this game, opinions, questions, anything. You can leave them there on the YouTube. I'd very much appreciate it. Share with a friend, all of that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for listening. The Browns are 3-2. Let's go.